what the aggregator is trying to sell you on. Hey, we buy, build, and grow brands. We are the experts. We have a lot more scale, a lot more money. We're going to take your brand and we're going to take it to the next level. Based on that promise, you'll get to participate in the upside while you're sitting on the beach. The reality is, though, and especially with the environment we're in,
it was really nuts. That was sort of Thrasio's pitch. We know this because there's a lawsuit that's public record. Holy buckets.
Liran Hirschkorn, your host of the E-commerce Mindset Podcast. You can see this episode on YouTube as well under the Incrementum Digital channel. In this episode, I have a great conversation. I just finished it with Paul Rafelson. Paul is an attorney who last year did over $200 million of deals representing sellers in selling their businesses, a lot to aggregators. He also has helped sellers with suspensions and arbitration against Amazon and sales tax issues and a variety of legal matters. We spoke about what's been happening in terms of people selling their business, the multiples and how they've changed from last year to now and what the current environment looks like, as well as some interesting things that are happening with Amazon, like Amazon Buy with Prime and his thoughts on why Amazon is going into that. And I think you'll find that interesting. This episode is sponsored by IncrementumDigital.com. At Incrementum Digital, we help you scale your brand with Amazon advertising, DSP, Google Ads to Amazon, listing optimization, influencer marketing, and seller operations. You can reach out at incrementumdigital.com. And this episode is also sponsored by 8Fig. 8Fig is the best opportunity to get growth capital, the most flexible solution in the market for e-commerce sellers. I think now, especially that multiples have come down from about 6 to 7x to 2x. You have a lot more incentive to actually scale your business now. I think the multiples will move up slightly from where they are towards the beginning of next year. I think when aggregators stabilize a little bit more and get their operations, and we'll start buying again because they're seeing multiples down again. There'll be more competition. But right now, I think the best thing to do is scale your business. 8Fig.co helps you get growth capital and supply chain planning tools so that you can scale your business. Visit 8fig.co, incrementumdigital.com, and enjoy this episode with Paul Rafelson. I kind of hit the record button as we were starting to talk a little bit before the podcast. Paul asked me how things are doing, and I mentioned, dealing lately a little bit with sellers that are down this year and that are experiencing, I would say, a little bit tougher times this year. I think you said sort of the word on the street is that if you're down less than 10%, you're doing well.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been hearing. It's not a lot of our clients. Our firm is hyper focused on Amazon. We have thousands of clients over the years who've sold on Amazon. So it's that's just sort of the sentiment that we're hearing. And last time I was on your podcast, we were talking about we were at sort of the height of what I kind of even said in some of my posts on Facebook, it was kind of like this aggregator bubble, like what's going on here? People are getting these crazy multiples, and it was just every month the multiples were changing. And I even remember after your podcast, like the multiples went up. I was giving like my kind of approximation, and it very quickly grew from there, and it got bigger. So having sort of the busiest year, we did like $200 million in aggregator deals last year, right? And so we're paying attention because we've got clients who have earnouts and they're not necessarily hitting the targets that they were expecting. That's why we always preach, like, don't rely on that. That's not real money,
Right.
So you can go back and listen to that old podcast and hear me say it. And it's exactly the kind of thing. It's just that, so we're paying special attention. That's what we're seeing. We're just seeing that people are not, these things, they call them stability payments, which are supposed to be like these low-hanging fruit payments, like, an extra 1x. All you got to do is kind of like same as last year. It's like a low-hanging fruit. They're not even getting, those are falling apart. That's the market. I mean, it's a little scary. And where we were heading before we press record, what I thought was interesting is just kind of reminiscing and thinking, not reminiscing, but just sort of thinking like, I was an Amazon seller like a long, long time ago. I was never a big Amazon seller, but I was paying for school. I was selling like DVDs and stuff. This is like early 2000, like 3, 4, 5, and it was eBay, half.com. There were other sites. Amazon was even my primary when I started. So I kind of, I've been paying attention to Amazon for a long time. But FBA, like the industry that Amazon selling has become, today hasn't really been through an economic downturn. And it's, looking at what's going on in the market, this is kind of like the first one, right? This is the first, and then there's COVID. The COVID started out that way, but then it ended up kind of doing a quick, spike up in the other direction. So I don't really count COVID because a lot of, we remember the COVID bubble, right? Like people were doing really well. So this is really kind of the first time where we're seeing, you see a world where the government is pretty much clear that they want to crash the market. They need to raise interest rates. They need to hedge inflation. It's causing turmoil in the markets. You've got record high gas prices. You've got war. Buying habits and consumer habits are going to change. And then coming out of a pandemic, you've got this, people are more driven by experience, right? People are kind of over things. They want to experience things. So if your business isn't really geared towards that, like home goods is definitely not the market it was back in the day, right? It's kind of gone the other direction.
Right. Home goods are, everything that really did so well during COVID, right? Toys, arts and crafts, puzzles, at-home fitness products. Now people they want to go out and go to the gym again. They want to see people. They want to go to events, like you said. And the COVID sort of boom, during COVID, we were like, wow, e-commerce and it was easy to get caught up in that. Well, e-commerce has moved, 10 years forward. Well, now it's kind of back to, I think, the same trajectory that it was without COVID. And it's just that people were spending money on products because they couldn't do anything else. You couldn't go out to a concert. You couldn't send your kids to dance class. So you bought them stuff.
And they were getting money from the government. I'm not being political here, but I mean, it's a fact, right? Like you were getting more money. People were sometimes making more money just sitting at home than working a job that
might
have been minimum wage. I mean, it was. I don't want to get into any of the politics of this. I'm just saying that economically, people, there was a wealth effect. And with nothing to do.
What did everyone do? What did everyone do with those? Did everyone use the EIDL money and all that stuff the way just for their business, or the way they should have, etc.? Probably not, right? I know somebody that bought an apartment under their business, with EIDL money and using it for business purposes.
I loved all those cases of especially in Florida, right? Of like the guy that gets the payday relief, what was it called? The PPP loan. And he gets like 10 Lambos and didn't think he was gonna get caught.
Right. Yeah.
So it's nuts.
That's another, sort of thing that's happening in the market. So what's happened, you said $200 million of deals last year with Aggregator. So just to make it clear for those listening, Paul is doing the legal work, representing the seller, and helping them structure the deal and negotiate and make sure that they're not getting, let's say, screwed over through some things in a contract that you might think happen, but actually have a very small percentage of happening, or ways that your earnout could be taken, or ways that you could be sued if the performance of the brand doesn't continue. So what's kind of happened, in terms of the multiples that you're seeing from last year, kind of the height of things? Where were the multiples? Let's talk about a business that does, I don't know, 500,000 in profit to $1 million in profit a year, that does maybe 3 to 6 million in sales. Where were the multiples, and what are they now, and are you seeing deals happening right now?
There's a lot there, and you're absolutely right. My role as lawyer, I kind of say I'm just reporting what I see. Last year, we saw many letters of intent across my desk every week. It was I had the craziest year of my life last year. I mean, November, December, especially because everybody thought taxes were going to go up, so everyone was pushing we usually sort of slot deals, in a given month. Okay, we're getting the LOI today, then we expect to be closed by this point. But then, come November, it's everyone wants to be done by the end of the year. You're getting the LOI on Thanksgiving. It's we want to be done by December, before Christmas. And it's just, but you're kind of slotted against all the other people. So we had an actual storm coming into December. I mean, it was really nuts. At that time, what we're focused on is we're just seeing the data, right? I'm just reporting what I see. And we're being hired not to get you the best price, not to, but the best terms. And a lot of it's to protect you from moments like this, because you're right. I mean, a lot of brokers, they don't like the lawyers, a lot of, because
you're killing their deal.
That's what they're afraid of. And I will say our close rate is very high. It was actually extremely high, but I mean, that's the fear, right? A good lawyer who actually looks out for the seller. And I will say, sometimes we're the only person in the transaction looking out for the client, including the client themselves, because they're they get this I'm on a beach mindset. I'm already on the beach. I don't care. Just give me a piece of paper to sign. But what you're not thinking about is like the scenario we're in today is sort of like proof that what we do is justified because we're trying to protect you. We don't want economic downturns to be turned into blame.
Because what the aggregators sort of, or what each aggregator is trying to sell you on and trying to differentiate on is, hey, we buy, build, and grow brands, right? We boost brands. We are the experts. We're going to take your brand. We have a lot more scale, a lot more money. We're going to take your brand and we're going to take it to the next level. And sort of based on that promise, you'll get to participate in the upside while you're sitting on the beach. The reality is, though, and especially with the environment we're in, I think there are scenarios probably where that has happened, but there's probably also a lot of scenarios where that hasn't happened.
It's such a perfect storm environment right now. I mean, so many things happen. I mean, for one, that was sort of Thrasio's pitch, right? We know this because there's a lawsuit that's public record between Boost and Thrasio. I know exactly what Thrasio was selling, this concept that give me your listing, give me a tired, old, whatever listing you want. And it's like, we have a gonculator, we have a system.
And what is that lawsuit, Paul? Maybe you can touch on it. So from what I originally saw, there was an employee from Thrasio that went over to Boosted, and Thrasio claimed
it wasn't an employee. I think it was one of the investors. It was one of the investors. That one of the investors in the one of their I don't know if it was one of the original private equity firms, I guess, had access to their pitch deck. And in their pitch deck, they're claiming this pitch deck, described our proprietary method. So I liken it to like, what's our secret sauce? Or if you, and the way Thrasio sort of explains it is it's almost like when you watch CNBC and you see stock footage of like the Ford assembly plant, and you see the car going through different stages, right. And they're sort of saying like, we can take any brand and run it through this process. And then within, a set number of time, we're up by X%. And by within a year, we might be triple, 300%. And that was sort of what the pitch deck was about. And they're saying, hey, this is our trade. This was our trade secret. This is proprietary. And somebody who saw that and had access to the private data room that was supposed to be under an NDA took the information from there and started Boosted Commerce. I don't want to comment on the because I've worked with both, and I just don't, and I kind of think it's a little bit of an advertising, because I noticed like it was a very self-serving complaint when I read it, where Thrash was like, our earnout payout rate is like the highest ever. We always pay our earnouts, or almost, it just almost seemed like, what was the point of this? And I don't know. It's just you can't help but laugh at the name Boosted, though. I mean, it is funny, but I mean, I like Boosted. Like they're all fine. Like they all do their thing.
They're good people there. I know some.
And we've done deals with them. We've done with Thrash. So I don't want to comment on the litigation and whether it's merit.
In fairness, right? Like this is a very challenging environment for sellers too, right? I mean, aggregators and sellers, right? So the fact that you may not be able to deliver on the growth, it is a challenging environment. I wouldn't say.
But I also think this vindicates a little bit. One could argue that this could vindicate Boosted a little bit and say, like, you know what, Thrasio, your underlying theory was not only like weak, but it's actually wrong. Because I think what we notice in the trend, and I know I'm not answering the original question you asked me, we're kind of digging into some interesting groundwork, but is that the mechanism, like when we were doing deals like in 2019 and 2018, like they literally did not want the seller. They're like, we got this, right? This is our system. We know how to do it better than you do, even though we don't have any Amazon operators in our team, or we don't really but we think we can figure it. How hard could it be, right? They really underestimated how important the seller is and the passion when the seller brings their passion.
To play the devil's advocate side, no supply chain issues, 2018. No, $2,500, $3,000 for a container. Man, life was good, right? Like it was in a sense easier, but at the same time, yes, I think the aggregators did underestimate the grit,
how hard it is,
the grit that sellers have in fighting every day with Amazon, with the Chinese sellers, with each other, everything.
Right, and they didn't have the manpower to look at all the brands, and they were prioritizing brands. Like that's something we look into when earnouts. Like, did you deprioritize because you didn't have enough money to spend on clients' PPC?
Do sellers have a case, to say, hey, I should take you to legal action here because you didn't prioritize my brand, or you didn't give it what you should have given it? I mean, would it be a very difficult case to go try to win that earnout money?
Yeah, it's going to be a hard case. I mean, it's even if the contract is favorable to you. I mean, this is the most expensive complex, so you have to have a pretty significant earnout, right? So either you're doing it as a class, and most of these agreements have arbitration. You know, it's pretty common, and usually arbitration's to your benefit because like you really don't want expensive, especially if they're suing you, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what we tell our clients. Like no matter how well written the earnout provisions are, like the court, if you're going to spend $500,000 in litigation fees. You're not going to pay that to me because we're not a heavy hitting litigation firm, right? You're going to pay it to litigators. If you have to spend that much money for a chance to get the money, and then if you lose, you got to pay their $500,000 legal fees.
It's got to be a big, multi millions of dollars, right?
Exactly. And so when you find, right. And we did deals of all sizes. So you had some deals where the earnouts were, in the hundreds of thousands, some where it was in, that range where in the millions or tens of millions. So it could be, but yeah. So what we call that in the law is a negative value claim, right? Like it's the cost of litigation outweighs the potential benefit, right? When you just look at the numbers. So that's kind of and I always say that's sort of the organic moat that they have against you suing them is that, they have all the power. Once you go into the closings table with them, they have all the leverage at that point. Everything is off the, because if they don't want to pay you an earnout, whether you think it's justified or not, they just don't have to pay you. They can come up with some claim, they can come up with some reason. They don't have to sue you to not pay you. It's on you to sue them, and that's expensive.
Right. So the bottom line is, and I think this is what I think both of us have said, make sure that the money you're getting up front is you're happy with just that money.
I mean, I lecture every client on this. I say it on every public statement. Like it's the first thing when I meet a client, I say it's gravy. It's got to be gravy.
Right.
If it's not, then I would say like if you're not getting this earnout or stability payment or whatever is going to cause you to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge because you feel like you just then this ain't the deal for you. Don't do it. Right. Make that deal. Make the deal where what you walk away with at the closing table is enough.
And so what are the multiples? So we I think last year.
Yeah, that was the original part of the question.
6, 7. Yeah, we got a good discussion there. 6, 7x, right? Like type multiples.
I mean, it was crazy. It really trended. Yes, the second half of last year, it really trended. Whereas, like in the first half, when I was on your podcast last year, coming out of the first quarter, I think we did it was around a little earlier than this time last year. I was kind of seeing like, if you were under $1 million, you were typically looking at 3.5-ish at close. That was
under $1 million profit, right? EBITDA.
Profit, SDE, discretionary earnings, EBITDA, depending on how you calculate it.
Yep.
Save that discussion for another time. But depending on where you were in the profit spectrum, right? If you were under $1 million, you kind of stayed under 4. That's kind of how it was, But like, 2018, 2019, it was like you were under 3. I mean, there was no market. There was nothing, right? There was 2 buyers. There was like Upsilon and Thrasio. I don't think there was anybody else. Right. So it kind of gradually ticked up. And 101 Gojo. Those were the other one I read.
101 Commerce, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the way it was then. And then it just like slowly ticked up. But yeah, it's just like it's almost like right after we had that podcast, like and I think you were even questioning me on the most, like that you said you kind of thought they were a little higher. And like literally after all of a sudden the LOIs start coming in and I'm like, holy buckets. People who have under $1 million are getting 5x, 6x at close, right? 8x, 6. I mean, I don't think I ever saw anything above 8, but I mean, I think like 6, 7, but the idea was once you break $1 million, you're in a new bucket, right? And every million over that, you get into a newer, you get into a higher multiple, but it wasn't necessarily jiving like that. Sometimes you would see, just randomly, like here's a company that's doing $400,000 and they're getting a 6x. Okay. And you start to wonder, like, you're telling your client, like, this is probably the most expensive area of law that we do, right? Like most of the stuff we do is, Amazon stuff, like that's pretty low level. It's pretty easy to handle, file a trademark, this is by far the most complicated body of law that, as a law firm for Amazon businesses we do. And you start to, just say to the client, like, I just want to warn you, like this, you're almost like, this seems so unrealistic. Like they're so off the wall. No, they closed.
Right.
Damn it. They were closing at these multiples. So the multiples were skyrocketing. Like crazy, and people are getting competitive bidding offers. Like you could do that.
Great time to sell.
That's kind of what I'm hearing. I mean, a lot of my clients from last year, even if they're not getting their earnouts, they're like, looking at where we are, because let me tell
Right.
you where we are now.
Yes.
We're in 2018. We're not seeing people getting above a 3. I have clients who are doing millions that are getting multiple millions that are getting less than 4.
How has that affected like the volume of deals? Because I imagine, well, a few things are happening, right? Some of the aggregators are either paused or significantly more
Yes.
cautious or only wanting bigger deals. At the same time, sellers are probably feeling like, for
Not the
2x,
best time. Yeah.
for 2x, I'll just keep running the business.
Right. For 2x, I'll just keep running the business. Or if I'm down over last year, because like we said at the beginning, if I'm down less than 10%, I'm on the top rung.
Right.
That's not the best time. That's not when you want to present yourself for sale, because then you just feel like, that's not really the best time. Right. So you got all these things work. But it's interesting. We still have deal flow. I mean, we closed, we're still closing deals, but it's definitely, the deal pace is slow. I actually enjoy the pace right now.
Right.
Complexity has gone up because now the private equity guys are, super paranoid. They want more. So, give you an example. I did a deal this year. The law firm on the other side, I mean, my opinion had no, but this is a law. When I worked at Microsoft, like, how long ago was that? It was a long time ago, over 10 years ago, right? It would be like the law firm we hired at Microsoft, right? So this is a law firm that caters to the top companies in the world.
Right.
And now they're on the other side of my deal.
Right.
That was like, it was big. It was definitely 8 figures deal, but it wasn't like, but even then, like
that's a law firm for the aggregator.
Yeah, the aggregators, the private equity people demanded they hired one of the world's best law firms, like the law firm that does work for me. So here I am. I'm like, why? And I'm looking at these guys like, why are you here? This is a mid-market deal. This is not, this is a blip.
Right.
You're used to,
100 million plus.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You're helping Elon Musk buy Twitter. That's what you're doing. And now you're here with me. And it's funny because like you're thinking, I'm like, your legal bill's probably more than this deal, because like you're sitting on a call and they got 10 lawyers on every call, like just most of them just listening, but billing, because that's the leverage model of big law firms, is you just have 10 lawyers on every call and then they're all billing at the same time. But when your client's Microsoft, they don't care as much. That's the theory, right? So why are they here? So I mean, that's the thing. Complexity's gone up. The pace is slower. Like the time from start to finish is now it's much longer. Whereas before you could be on an accelerated pace where, from, when you first get the APA, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month, it could be 2 months at most. Usually,
what is the deal taking now from like term
like 3 months? I mean, they get stalled for funding issues. A lot of deals fell through. We had a lot of deals coming in January, and I gotta say, like a lot of them fell through early. A lot of them to get diligence, the buyer,
and that was one of the selling points. A lot of aggregators, I don't know if they still have this on their sites, but
they love it. Yeah, the quick close. Yeah.
One of the early selling points was 30 days to close. Week 1, we evaluate and give you an offer. Week 2, term sheet, negotiate, move to close. Less than 30 days, done deal.
And we always tell our clients that that's actually to your detriment. The reason they want a quick close is because they don't want your lawyer they don't want you to spend time lawyering the document. And what the document is, it's 100% screw power. We call it a buyer favorable agreement. It means it's 100% their ability. So for example, you mentioned the price of shipping containers, right? Like, they could say, oh, well, you didn't, the price of shipping containers was this material adverse effect. You didn't, disclose that. We're going to ding you here. They had so much. So that's what we fight. Like I literally put that in. I had an article called "Are You Shipping Me?" with a P, not a T. And it was about about all the freight, because we just wanted to put in this. Like, hey, you should know what's going on in the macro environment, but just we're just very cautious of our clients because we want to protect them from exactly what's going on here. That the buyer's going to get remorse and start going after sellers. And people always just say, oh, but they'll never do that. Thrasio would never go after me, or so-and-so would never go after me, because they have the reputation. Well, you know what? When they're failing, and it's the private equity guys behind them that are losing money, they don't care about the reputation anymore. Right. They want their money. So that's the fear. And we're in an environment now where, like, I stand by what we do as a law firm. But yeah, it does make it slower, but it's for your protection.
And I can personally vouch that Paul has helped me on a number of legal matters in the last couple of years. And yes, you want things to move quickly and you just want to sign, and it can feel frustrating when, like, he's bringing up a problem to you, but at the end of the day, it's protecting you. And it's sound advice that, and sometimes, I would say in working with you, you've said to me, look, this, you can decide, I think it's a very small chance. It's a 1% chance this can happen, up to you if you want to fight it or not. Right. And that's a personal decision I think you need to make on the deal. But having that information, and a lawyer that actually tells you and is looking to protect you, I've never, Paul has done a great job personally for me in making sure that, you really feel like he's fighting for you and looking to, protect you.
Well, that's really kind of you to say, and I appreciate that. And I do love working with you, and the fun things that we've worked on have always been interesting. But what you just said there was absolutely 100% my point. I always tell my clients, I said, at the end of the day, though, you're always the bus driver, not
Right.
me. Like, I'm going to tell you, I hate this thing. I think this is
Right.
terrible, but I'm not going to abandon you.
Right.
I'm not going to walk away from you. I had to do that once, and it felt really bad. It was so awful. I'm like, I just, I think
well, you also have a certain sense of liability yourself, right? Because if
because you feel like you haven't, right. But
if a client signs something, and you didn't warn them, they can go turn
and
around
you
and
have to worry about it, right? And that's
right.
why sometimes we have letters. We have to write letters to clients. We have to write emails saying, this is highly risky. And that's what we do sometimes. If it's one of those cases that this is, you could be sued, you could lose this. There are those times, and we had a deal where they wanted, the whole deal was structured under the law. It was going to be structured on the law of a country that I don't even know. It's like,
right.
And you're like, and I'm explaining to this person who's on this side of the hemisphere, right? And I'm saying, like, your problem is that they're going to have all your assets. So it's like you're going to sell your car to this person, but they're only going to pay you after they go to the DMV and title it in their name.
Right.
You're going to give them the car,
right?
And if anything goes wrong, like they shortchange you,
so that's like basically until they transfer over the seller account to their name, and if something goes wrong, you're not getting paid.
Yeah, but to boot, you have to go sue them in some country I've never heard of.
Right.
Right. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, under the jurisdiction of that country and the courts of that country. I mean,
right. Good luck.
Right. You'll take anything at that point. I mean, they can literally, and at the time, it's like, new aggregators were popping up left and right. I didn't know this. I'm like, I don't know who you are. I've never worked with you.
Right.
I work with a lot of you, but it's like, new ones just pop up. Oh, you just got your funding yesterday.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, I don't even have a reputation to trade on.
Right.
So, but those are the kinds of crazy things we see. But, at the end of the day, if my client in that situation chooses that he wants to do it, we'll support him as much as we can.
Right.
Maybe we'll push to at least get U.S. law and arbitration in that country, because maybe that's better. Maybe that's better for, but it's always their decision.
And at the end of the day, I mean, the whole aggregator space, is, there are pros and cons to it. Like the aggregators really opened up a huge opportunity for a lot of people to exit their business that maybe there weren't that many buyers before for the business, and obviously drove up the multiples last year, and a lot of sellers benefited from it. On the other side, you also now have competitors that are playing with, with more money, and are competing with you. So I mean, there's pros and cons. I don't think it's all negative.
I don't want to be a shit stirrer, and pardon my cursing here, but
yes.
Do you ever wonder, because I kind of said this, I don't remember, it was some random Facebook post where I said, it's like, or maybe it was in Business Insider, I don't remember where I said this, but it's like, there's China, right?
Yes.
And then it's like the aggregators kind of become the new China. Like, are you going to get into this market if you've got these big private equity backed companies in it, right? Are you going to get into that? Right. Are you going to go into that? And then the question is, I don't think Amazon likes them. I mean, is it possible that there's some?
So my understanding is, a few things. One, I think that Amazon doesn't mind them. I think there's benefits to Amazon that Amazon sees, because when aggregator buys the business, they're professionalizing the listing. They can't afford to get sued for not having the
at least now they are. Some of them, I mean, believe it or not, there was no due diligence in a lot of the deals. But part of the reason we would do so much in the disclosure side is because they were literally just disclaiming it. They're saying like we're not going to look at due diligence. I'm like, did you do the diligence? Like, no, they didn't do anything.
Right.
They just didn't care. They were just like, just hungry to get the brand going.
We'll deal with it later. There's so much competition.
Yeah.
To buy.
They didn't have like, compliance experts on their team. They didn't have lawyers who knew that into stuff. And so we ended up having to do this stuff to protect our client. But you're right. I mean, a lot of them grew into that.
Yeah. So in theory, right, you have insurance, you're making sure the products are, hopefully, because you have bigger potential liability, that you have the right certifications on the things. You're hopefully making the listings better and professionalizing the space. So I think that's a benefit to Amazon. I think
I agree.
I think where potentially Amazon might have an issue is if an aggregator got so big that they had some power over Amazon.
Bingo.
Right? Now, today, I don't think that's the case. I mean, even Thrasio, right? Let's say, who's, I think the biggest, I don't know their brand count today. It's probably in the 200 to 300 range in terms of how many brands they have is what I think it is. But that's still minute, right? In terms of like
it's a drop in the Amazon bucket.
It's a drop in the Amazon bucket. But I mean, how would Amazon feel if Thrasio, if somebody could come in and buy, 60% of all the brands out there, right? Or whatever the private label brands, then I think they have the power to create their own marketplace. They have the power to, they have power over Amazon. And I think that they would have, an issue with, but it's not the case. It's not the case today. It's the same reason like Amazon loves the Chinese sellers because they bring down prices. They're able to source really quickly, even despite all the manipulation and the black hat, right? There's a certain benefit that they bring to Amazon, which is why Amazon embraced them. So my understanding was some of the aggregators, they do seem to have sort of like internal connections at Amazon, etc. So I don't think Amazon is anti, and I think if they were, they would do more enforcement of selling the Seller Central account and all this stuff that apparently,
again, something we put in every deal document. We put, because everyone thinks I'm crazy. Like, but yet, have you noticed lately, Amazon, there's a suspension when you get the related account suspension. Like one of the three things, I have not sold my Amazon account, is one of the three things you have to attest to. And I put it in every document. I am adamant for my clients that like because there's this concept that you have to promise that you have consent of Amazon to go into the transaction. It doesn't say it explicitly. It says you have the consent of all required parties. And I'm like, you don't get Amazon's consent. They're like, oh, but we just email Amazon and say we're making changes. And then they say, sure. Wait, but you're not telling them that you sell the account, which is a direct, and everyone's like, are you just being paranoid? I'm like, no, I'm not. It's right in there. We know how accounts get shut down. That's one of those things that we do, drives people nuts, but it's like, this is what we do to protect our clients. And again, our close rate's high, very, very high. But I just love that I didn't mean to jump in on you, but another thing, I would agree with you. I think you're right. Like, I think there's in some ways Amazon appreciates the fact, because especially now that they're going to be liable, like the courts have moved towards the direction that like they are Amazon. If somebody gets killed using your product, it's Amazon who's going to get sued. Right. I mean, you may get sued too, but I mean, they're going after Amazon.
That's why they're enforcing having insurance and,
other. But you also have, do you remember who invested in Bain? I just gave it away. Remember who invested in Berlin last year? Berlin Brands, like around this time.
Bain Capital, you were saying?
Bain Capital, right. So does Amazon want Bain Capital in their pond, right? Do they want big dogs? And that could be a power struggle. And then I think something you said too about China is, here's where I think it lies. I think they're cautious, and I think they're watching with close guard about what's going on. But I think the concern is that they love China, like you said, because they can bring price down. And to me, Amazon, in a way, Prime and Amazon is really just Costco. It's they want you to be a member. They want you to find the membership to be valuable. If the consumer doesn't think Prime is a valuable thing to have, that's a disaster in their mind. And so that's why they always nail you on pricing errors, because they don't want you to be able to do a Google search and see that, I could have gotten cheaper as a non-Prime member, right? That's a disaster. It's the same thing. They want competition. They need competition to bring the price down, to make Prime membership valuable to the consumer. If the aggregator can come in and dominate like China, but can drive price up because they're the dominant player and nobody can come in, that's what I think they're worried about. And that's why they want to make sure China is not going to be, influenced by aggregators or taken out of the picture, because then they're going to apply upward price pressure. That's my theory, but that's like my underlying crazy analysis of Amazon since I've been spending my life in this world. So
I want to switch gears to another topic here, but just to finish off on the current state of the market. Basically, multiples are lower. And, if, you want to think if now is a good time to sell, or, if you want to continue to scale, and grow your business, where perhaps multiples may get better if the environment improves, or if some of these aggregators are able to turn around a little bit and improve their operations. I think many spent more on building their M&A teams than building their operational teams, and are now kind of learning that lesson. And also more seem to be keeping on the founders, is what I'm seeing, or they want to keep on the founders to continue to run the business, which
and
is smart.
that's actually something I was trying to get to earlier, but how I fly from one thing to another. Solid attention span here. But yeah, that's the one thing we noticed that was changing between earlier years and later, is that keeping the owner on as an operator for a longer term is now, like the idea
Standard.
Was back in the day, you do maybe.
Are you seeing that even with Thrasio, or not necessarily? Or are they?
I haven't seen Thrasio in a while, so like I said, it's been slow. Like, I don't mind it. I actually, after the year I had last year, it was so much, so crazy. Like it's a good pace. We like it. We like where we're at. We love it. I don't know if I want, I think last year we did a lot of smaller deals, and what ended up happening was the smaller deals became just as difficult as the bigger deals. But then you can't really build a client for the small, and so it's harder. That's the thing I have to worry about going forward, is because I really do want to serve everybody. We're an Amazon seller advocacy law firm. We want to serve. I don't care I don't want to just choose the big guy, right? But we have new associates, right? We have new people on board, so we can use their lower rates to scale to that, so we continue to serve. So we had to adjust to that. But we had a lot of we weren't turning people down last year. We were just like, we'll take But yeah, that has become like mandatory. It used to be 40 hours in the first week, first month or so, up to 40 hours. And then it'd be like, another 40 to 60 hours over the course of the next 6 months. And really, they didn't really want you that long. They wanted you for like a week. You were done, right? They just wanted to make sure that they could find everything they needed. Once they felt they had it, you were gone. You were on the beach, right? And yeah, that to me is standard, not the case anymore. I don't know about Thrasio, like I said, but in the deals that we're seeing, and that's sort of and from some other aggregators I've talked to, that's sort of the mentality, is that like operators is what wins the day, and not having operators is part of what the problem was. And so they need you to stay as an operator. So people who want to sell their business and just check out right away, that's not going to happen in the aggregator market. Now, maybe somewhere else. Right. And that's the other thing to consider. If you're big enough, like maybe you don't need an aggregator, maybe go somewhere else. I always say, come talk to me. It's the one time we do free consultation. It's such a huge life decision. It's usually the biggest thing that ever happens to somebody. For most of our clients, like the biggest thing that's ever happened to them is this transaction. So, out of respect, like this is the one area where we can kind of like offer free consultations and take a little time. We can't do that with trademarks. We can't do it because it's just too much. That's why we have Seller Basics. But contact us. We know M&A brokers. We know people outside of the Amazon space that know how to sell businesses. We can, put feelers out. We don't do brokers. We don't charge commissions. We're just, we're lawyers who charge hourly rates. But we know what's going on. And even if you hire a broker, come talk to us first, because your broker contract needs to be negotiated. You don't even. Sometimes the broker contracts suck. So I encourage you, don't assume that this is a very general discussion we're having, but everyone's situation is unique. So if you're selling you something you want to do, even if it's like, I don't care if you're our client today. I want you to be my client. I don't care if you're my client today or in 3 years. I'd like to meet you today, whenever you want. Come talk to us. If you're thinking about selling your business, we love speaking to people. And
it makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah, I'd say, you think, okay, I want to sell in 6 months. I want to sell in a year. It's a good idea to have a conversation and to have an attorney, and
we'll fill you in and just talk to you. And when you're ready, you're ready. It's not, we're anything but like I said, I don't really care if you're my client. I really do want you to be my client, but I don't care if it happens today or 3 years. It's like I think the most bittersweet thing about last year was that a lot of the deals we did, not a lot of the deals, but I mean, a good chunk of the deals we did for clients that I knew, who knew me when I was just talking about taxes, because that was the topic that brought me into Amazon, right? And I got a little bit typecasted. I'm trying to do more in tax. But it's cool that like people who are making less than $1 million, right? But people are making less than, in sales, not even profit, right? 4 years ago were now coming to me and they were doing $10-15 million deals. I mean, that was really cool to see. Like, people, I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from you in years. Like, where are you? Oh, about some of my business for 15 minutes. Like, my God, when I met you, you were barely making 200 grand.
Right.
That was always fun. That's always bittersweet to see. I was always happy to see that. So anyway, I want to switch gears with you. I don't want to keep going.
Okay. So I want to ask you about a different thought as we switch to this, but definitely highly recommend you talk to Paul if you're looking to sell your business. Because also Paul has a good view, right, of what's happening, because
exactly, we just have a view.
The deals on the market, who's buying, well, what are they buying, what are the deals like, how easy or difficult are they to work with, etc. But I want to ask you about this Amazon going in this direction of buy with Prime. And
you saw my post. You saw, okay,
I saw a little bit of a conversation, but what do you think about this? Amazon wants you to put code on your site. I actually had a sort of confidential conversation about this with Amazon last week as well too, about some of the fees that are going to be involved, etc. But essentially, Amazon wants to be. There's a great article on stratechery.com on Amazon as a service. Andy Jassy, who's a CEO, started AWS, which kind of is the underlying of what a lot of the data and cloud of what powers the internet. And Amazon wants to do that in e-commerce. So what is Buy with Prime? For those that haven't heard, Buy with Prime will allow you to put a snippet of code on your D2C website, Shopify, BigCommerce, wherever. And people who are Prime customers will be able to see, a Buy with Prime button, or they'll be able to check out with Buy with Prime. The merchant processing will be done through Amazon Pay, and then the fulfillment will come from Amazon. Now, Amazon has already offered this before, but now it's Prime shipping through the fulfillment of Amazon, so 1 to 2 day shipping. And you don't actually have to sell on Amazon to have that. You can just have your inventory there, and Amazon will do the fulfillment for you. So why is this, I think, a big power move on Amazon's side? Well, Shopify, for example, just bought Deliver. So they just bought a huge, fulfillment company. Shopify also makes a lot of its money on merchant processing. And by doing this, Amazon is taking away both of those things from Shopify. They are doing the merchant processing, so they'll charge, 2.4% or whatever plus 30 cents, pretty similar rates of what's out there. They'll charge you a fulfillment fee, $5, $4 or $5 for the shipping, and then there's going to be an added fee, sort of per product, and they're going to do the shipping for you. I think my opinion is that this will be, should help D2C sites heavily improve their conversion rates, because people who are Prime customers will now be able to get their shipping really quickly, and it'll be effective for conversion rates, and perhaps you'll need to rely less on Amazon selling than and you could do more on your D2C site. But I want to hear your perspective on sort of Amazon sort of owning more of a piece of the pie of sort of the entire market here, and what are maybe some of the negative consequences that maybe I'm not thinking about, or ramifications of this if this does get sort of mass adoption.
So I see this in a very different light. So just a little bit of background about me for those watching. So I do this nonprofit trade association. So I try to get sellers together, an online merchants guild, and we advocate for Amazon sellers, and we try to stay on. And we're going to actually have a big thing coming out this week, because taxes is happening and the new tax issues coming out. It's going to be really bad. We're going to talk about that next. We're going to do an open town hall next week. But we advocate for issues that are important to e-commerce businesses. A lot of them are Amazon sellers, because that's just how we reformed. We reformed it during an Amazon crisis around sales tax. It's not just tax, right? We did price gouging during the pandemic, was a big issue for a lot of clients. Antitrust, breaking up Amazon, right? We were the most cited resource in the government's the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Antitrust Investigation of Amazon. Our work, our research, our statements were the most cited resource. Our lawyers have been quoted by Congress, and you can watch Congress, and they're reading our emails live on talking about Amazon. So I view this from a very different lens, and this relates to I wrote a CNN editorial about 4 years ago, and it says Prime should be free for everyone. Now that's not what I meant. Whoever took the final cut and wanted the title, but and everyone's thinking like I'm saying Prime should be free. And I was talking about how Amazon basically built the railroad of e-commerce, and that's an expression you hear.
Yeah, we spoke about this on Clubhouse podcast or so
Yeah,
sometime back, where he
right.
said if Amazon were to be broken up, it should be the sort of Prime that everybody gets access to it. Walmart, Target,
Right,
everybody.
that's the railroad, because it's because the fact of the matter is America has a Prime addiction, and Amazon achieved that through some unnatural, maybe arguably anti-competitive ways. They had a lot of things going for them that really probably they shouldn't have on the front end, and that's sort of where we see the interest, is that they kind of got to this world where now everyone in America is a Prime member. And I don't care what you say, like pretty much everybody, except for those who just, I hate Amazon, I don't want to be Prime, but pretty much, it was like 100 million or 80 million households in the United, I don't even know what it is, but my guess is, yeah. So if you're not maybe the ones that aren't are your kids in college are just using their parents' Prime membership. But I pretty much assume most people are Prime members in America, right? So we're addicted to it. We're stuck. So no matter what Shopify does, like they're not going to get, because Americans don't think of Shopify as a unified thing, right? They're just individual websites, right? So
people don't know Shopify.
Right. They don't even know that they're shopping on Shopify. Right. Now, if Amazon wanted to be anti-competitive, what they would have done was would have just made their own Shopify, Amazon, right? Like if they really wanted to hurt Shopify, I think they would have just made their own version, because wouldn't most of us just use the Amazon version of Shopify integrated with Prime? That I think would get them in huge trouble with regulators. So because, so much of what our research was about the fact that, yeah, Amazon owns the e-commerce railroad. That's what Congress was saying during the hearings last year. That was last year. My memory's fading. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to stay, because they're afraid of being broken up. They're afraid of regulators. I really don't think much is going to happen on this front. Like I really think that the legislation is stalled. I don't think that, and even the legislation that's passed, it's just opens them up. There's so much litigation, like nothing will happen for decades. I mean, it's just it's looking good for Amazon, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately.
Right.
I just like fairness. Whether it's good or bad, fairness for the Amazon seller, for the merchant is all we care about in e-commerce. So what this does though is so now when you go to these unfamiliar websites as a shopper, right? You see Prime. I'm gonna get the 2-day shipping. I'm addicted to that, right? So it makes you like, it allows companies to open up and allows people to kind of like wake up and see products outside of Amazon, right? Products that are in, right? So all in all, I think it's Amazon's way of being proactive and saying, hey, here, look, we've liberated the e-commerce railroad. Now everybody can use it. We don't do preferential rates for us. Everyone pays the same.
Right.
And I think that's what I think this is. And I will never admit this to you. I mean, of course, they'll never say that. They'll say it's the strategic, but it doesn't really make sense to me that it's a move against Shopify. I think they just, they're listening.
But it is a move to get more fulfillment fees, and they will be charging a % of the sales.
I mean, they get a cut, but but you're still doing it through Shopify.
Yes.
So Shopify is still getting something. I mean, they could have cut Shopify out.
Yes, right. So one of my thoughts on this is this the first entry point?
No, because if they cut Shopify out, then they're going to get broken up. That's what I'm saying. You got to understand, they're having been in companies that have been almost broken up, Microsoft, for example. Like, you have to kind of understand the culture in there right now. Like the culture in a Fortune 10 company right now, when you're under that scrutiny, is everyone has to be very like they're getting lectures. People who work in Amazon get lectures on what they can say in emails. Don't use words like "we can dominate." Don't use words like "we'll crush them." Like they're being told, like, stop it. Like you have to act a certain way. The last thing they want to do is take out Shopify.
So you think this is actually Amazon proactively opening up Prime further because of concerns about legislation?
Because they're trying to show the regulators that you don't have to break up Amazon to liberate, or maybe they're going to say it didn't work and say, see, even if you did it, see, it didn't make a difference, right? Maybe they say, maybe it's a test thing. They do it for a year and say, no, nobody really cared. Still more people came to Amazon than Shopify. So, Paul's theory and CNN and the antitrust committee, whatever, it's all, they're wrong, right? Because it didn't work, right? Who knows? Amazon does a lot of pilot programs that go nowhere. So it could be one to disprove the theory and say, we're not the e-commerce railroad. See, it didn't matter. But I think but I definitely don't think it's, I fundamentally think it's being done as a sort of a proactive concession to the antitrust scrutiny that they're under to sort of deter the legislation from actually passing or any other action, and saying, hey, getting Congress to see, hey, look, we opened it up.
We're freeing up the internet.
There we go. Yeah. Other people can use the railroad too. So Bloomingdale's has no excuse because now Bloomingdale's can be prime, right? Bloomingdale's can be prime now under this program. Eventually, this program goes to its natural conclusion, right? Bloomingdale's could offer prime. Right. So here we are. So I don't think it's a play. I don't think Amazon is in a position to steal data. Like I don't buy it because
I don't think Amazon wants to steal data, but I think they realize D2C is a big business, and now they have another revenue source from.
They do, but they can't. They're in a position right now where they can't really use the data to their advantage in a retail environment. They can't. Their hands are tied. If they were the Amazon of yesteryear, yes, but the scrutiny that they're under. Right. That it's like if they start using that data to compete and then knock out another ginormous competitor or just compete against sellers. Like, I mean, remember, despite all this, what are Congress keep accusing Amazon of doing? What is the one thing they keep accusing Amazon of doing? It's actually not
third party seller data and killing the little guy.
Yeah, but did that really happen that much? Not as much as people think. Is that really how much is Amazon's total private label sales? It's de minimis compared to the rest of what goes on in Amazon.
Even 1P is less than 3P, right? So it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense, but it's so polarizing and captivating to paint that picture. That's why Congress, but it's kind of a red herring, and I think Amazon likes it because I think at any given moment they can pull the plug on the criticism. But they like that Congress, they're kind of saying, yeah, keep looking over there. You're going to find your clues over there. Because Congress is kind of dumb. I mean, like, do you remember a couple of years ago, I always say this on podcasts, right? There was a member of Congress, a member of our Congress reelected, asked Mark Zuckerberg, right, how he makes any money on on Facebook without charging people.
Right.
I mean, this is who's investigating this. Right. Now, there are some smart people obviously under these people, these subcommittee attorneys and stuff, but there is a bit of a red herring here. And the head of the FTC, wrote a whole paper about the subject of stealing Amazon data. So they're kind of committed to that being the marching order. And people I've spoken to, we all conclude it's just a red herring. It doesn't really. They can apologize to those. They could probably give every single person they screwed over millions, and it'd be a blip.
And so your thought on this buy with prime, essentially, it is positive for the seller, and for people.
I think it's intended to be positive for the seller and positive for competition. And it's a way to say, you don't need to break us up. We can liberate our train. We can let other people ride the train. We're not going to be abusive. We're going to let people, and, just so happens we have a ton of extra storage space anyway. Remember last year, it was all about IPI scores. Like that was the other reason why aggregators, they're not supposed to take your account. But they always did, and the number one reason why they needed your account was because they needed an IPI score, right? There was no space left. Now
Amazon is subleasing warehouses,
right? Because they're down and their stock's down. I mean, today it took another dive, but I mean it's down almost a third from where it was earlier this year,
right?
And part of it is because they said they overexpanded on warehouse space, so now they're too big,
right?
So they're going to lay
a lot of capacity to take on that D2C fulfillment.
Yeah, so I think they're in a good position to do it, and I think they're going to be under, for at least for the time being, they're really in no position to really, do anything advantageous with shade. They really aren't. I mean, they need that. And again, I speak from somebody who spent most of my life in-house in big companies. I work, Microsoft, Walmart, General Electric, right? There's a culture in-house. People have this idea of what goes on in corporations, but it's actually it's a lot different. Like, I mean, there's some evil companies out there that done some evil stuff, but the culture of that has changed over the years where it's a lot more about being, cautious and, very, very careful because, now everything's discoverable. Everything can be seen. There's no keeping secrets. So, there's a lot of paranoia at Amazon, I'm sure, at the legal side. And they're all saying, just whatever you do, it's got to be pro competition. Don't go crushing anyone. Don't go dominating. Don't go killing Shopify. And Shopify might actually benefit from this. I mean, that argument is if more people.
Well, again, yes, D2C sales should increase as a result.
Right. So they're going to see a benefit.
They'll see more people who are trying to succeed on Shopify because the conversion rates are better because Prime is available.
And sellers win because now we actually get the market, we actually the data. We get to know who our customer is.
Right.
We get to know who those Prime addicted people are. Right. And that's a new benefit. I mean, we kind of used to know, but back in the day it was illegal, not illegal, it was a violation of the BSA to use it. Now you're allowed to use it, right? I mean, I haven't looked deeply into how but that's
No,
my
I mean,
understanding is that
you
it's
get
your
all the
data.
data, all the emails, the same as you
And you're
would.
free to market however you want. You're
Correct.
not under no diversion
Correct.
clauses or any of that stuff.
Correct.
I wonder if they're going to change the policy on, no, I guess they wouldn't. Would they change the policy on no diversion where it's like, well, if you're diverting it to another site and Amazon, they probably are not going to change that.
I don't think so. And I think they're going to probably also make sure to enforce that you don't price lower, on your site than
that to me is still shocking. They can still do that. That the fact that that still happens. I mean, they're under big lawsuit out there because of that. And not even the one in DC, the one in California, Berman law, that lawsuit. I mean, where they're saying because of that, eBay is organic becomes more expensive by way of that policy, or Walmart becomes more expensive.
right.
People are always going to price those other places up rather than price Amazon down. So it's
Right.
basically like, a form of price fixing.
Right.
Yeah, and it's anti-competitive. It's bad for the consumer. All the things that antitrust class action lawyers love. I can't the pricing areas, but I get it because it goes back to, like I said, I mean, to me, Amazon is obsessed with the member and the member having an experience. And if the member puts into Google a product and they say, oh, Amazon here, and if I can buy it here, that's why they hate online arbitrage when OA, right? When the seller buys the product and then rather than delivering it through FBA or from your location, you go into Costco.com because you knew it was half price.
Right.
Type in the address of the customer under merchant fulfilled, and then the customer gets a Costco box.
Right.
And they see that you paid half price.
Right.
And that's what Amazon, that's why they hate OA. They don't mind OA when you take possession of the product or some 3PL, takes
ship it into Amazon.
Ships it in Amazon or ships it in a different box. But if the customer knows it came from Costco or Sam's, but they bought it on Amazon, that's exactly what they're afraid of. They don't want the Prime member to see
they don't want
value.
They don't want you to shop to compare pricing anywhere else, essentially.
Yeah, they want the Prime member has to believe that the best prices are on Amazon, and any evidence to the contrary damages the
reputation,
the goodwill and reputation of Amazon and Prime, and that's disastrous. It's a crazy world, but it's interesting times, and I'm interested to see how. I mean, it is such a storm of things happening in the world right now, and I don't know. It's a little scary.
It is. A lot of uncertainty. So definitely appreciate you coming on. I think we had a lot of good conversation about the current space of buying, some of these issues with Amazon. For those that don't know, Paul also runs something called Seller Basics, which helps sellers very low cost way to get legal advice and protection. Trademark, you should check out Seller Basics.
Free consultation. Yeah, I mean, complimentary consult. I mean, like I said, we don't do complimentary consultations, but with sellerbasics.com for $99 a month, we just hired Bethany Gall, great trademark attorney who's been in the Amazon space before. She's coming back. We brought her on the team. We've got Katie, we've got myself, we've got a great operations team. Seller Basics. We can't do free consultations because it's too much. We get a lot of inquiries, right? And I can't, we make like $50 on a trademark. It's not something we make money on. We do it because we have to, right? It's part of being an Amazon seller, like law firm. Like that's what we do.
Right.
So I can't spend an hour on the phone with people explaining trademarks, but what we did was we created Seller Basis. So for $99 a month, you can have a complimentary consultation on trademarks or anything else, or a scary letter that you got. Or
and it's an insurance for also if you have a membership, right? You get certain benefits if you're suspended or
like if your account suspended, we'll do what we can. I mean, it's insurance against the cost of like the consulting costs. Obviously, we can't insure your losses, but it's not really insurance. But the idea is for the $99 a month. What the other thing we do is we have our suspension team. We'll do whatever we can outside of litigation to get we'll do everything within our power. Every appeal, POA. If you're a reseller and you have intellectual property claims from brands, we deal with that all day long. I'm actually trying to make it go away by the end of the year. I hate those things. Nice. This is crazy. It's just enough of that. It's against Amazon policy, so stop using Amazon. There's another way to do it, but stop using Amazon because Amazon says it's against their policy. Right. But if you're dealing with those, we basically make those things either really cheap or, like you said, in the case of a full account suspension. So it works kind of like a discount. I call it like sort of like a business discount plan. So you get access to legal at a discount, access to Amazon suspension and advisory services at a discount. And we've got a great team, and it's $99 a month. I mean, people spend crazy money on services, and I'm like, I don't know how to make it. And I think people just don't have this idea that lawyers are expensive and they're always trying to bill you by the hour and just bill, and this is our way of just trying to get people, because, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that a lot of the times when our clients have really big problems, maybe they have to recall a product, maybe they have, a lot of those problems could have been solved, or could have been prevented with 15 minutes of talking to one of us.
Right.
And it's too late at that point. Right now,
Right.
you're on the hook. Right now,
Right.
you're getting the government's somebody's after you. You're getting student class actions. Like, that 15 minutes might have actually saved you from this heartache. And so, like, by making it $99 a month, I'm like, I'm hoping you'll take us up on our offer to guide you and give you a little bit of guidance. And if more needs to be done, it's discounted. You're in a discount plan. But our hope is that we can. We're not a litigation firm. We're not a firm that wants our clients to go to court. Most of our clients cannot afford court. There's no justice in the legal system when you go to court. It's too expensive. Not at least not, and that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make it accessible, make the law accessible, make sure that small businesses get on the right path, the right LLC guidance, the right business structure guidance, whatever it is, whatever your Amazon business should need. It's there for you, and you can at least have a conversation about it with a lawyer who knows your situation, who's going to know your situation and know how to give you the right advice, and you can do with it what you want. You don't have to listen. Like I said at the beginning, you always have to listen to us, but at least you'll know, and you'll know what your risks are, and I'll stop rambling because I'm good at
that. Very, very useful. Check out sellerbasics.com. Also ecomattorneys.com's Rafelson law firm. And thanks so much for Paul for coming on. Really great conversation.
I love coming on and talking to you. It's the most interesting conversation I've had in a while on the subject matter, and I appreciate it. I like that. I like this. So thank you, and I look forward to talking to you soon.